Tony Juniper, Executive Director of Friends of the Earth, is with us here to talk about his new book, Saving Planet Earth, which has recently come out to accompany the BBC series. Tony, thanks for talking to Green TV.
My pleasure.
Now, you end your book by asking your readers the question, do you want to save planet Earth? What audience is your book aimed at, and what effect do you hope it will have?
Going out with a BBC One TV series, I'm hoping this book will reach a very large mass audience, probably people who've heard a little bit about climate change and the mass extinction of species that's taking place. Probably they don't have too much idea of the detail or the urgency or the issues that lie behind some of these big picture changes that are taking place on the Earth right now. So what I'm hoping to do is to reach out to quite a big new audience who are beginning to understand some of these issues and to give them information that can help them take some decisions to try and solve some of these big problems. And what I've tried to do is not simply to give people information about changing their light bulbs. Obviously that's really important, but this is about big scale political and cultural change that is necessary in order to reverse some of these big trends. And what I've done with the book, I hope, is to provoke people into thinking through whether actually they want to do something about this, because the issues are very big, and until people collectively begin to ask for change, it's not going to happen. And so the book really is a clarion call for that change and asking people to back it.
The book has a very positive outlook on our abilities to save the planet if we act now. How optimistic do you feel about it?
I think doing this kind of environmental work, you have to be an optimist by definition. If you have a negative view about the possibilities of sorting out these big challenges, then I don't think you can do the work very effectively. So I'm an optimist, and I think for good reason, because we have enormous opportunities now to solve not only some very big environmental problems, but also at the same time to be reaping some enormous social and economic benefits. For example, the industrial revolution that comes alongside the transition to a low carbon economy will not only slash carbon dioxide emissions, it will create new industries, generate new jobs, and create new commercial opportunities on a scale that have been undreamt of. What we need, however, to make that happen is the public demand for political change. And this is the tricky bit. This is the bit that's hardest to explain in many ways, but which is the most important cornerstone of all the things that have to happen in a practical sense, moving away from fossil fuels to low carbon technologies. It's that cultural change and that political change which is the essential piece. I do think people are beginning to understand that, and I think the BBC One series that's going to go with this book, I think is going to have a big impact in shifting the public opinion in the right direction.
When speaking in the press and at events, you often sound less optimistic. How do you feel your views have changed in the past few years?
I think as time has gone by and one is fighting the little skirmishes and perhaps losing some of them, there's a tendency to feel a little bit disempowered and a little bit defeated when the motorway is built through the nature reserve or when the supermarket is built to increase traffic on the edge of the town. Those kinds of campaigns that I'm constantly involved in, some we win, some we lose. Actually, quite a lot of them we win, but the ones we lose, I think, do leave a slight sort of sense of unfulfilled kind of ambition. But I think if one looks at the big picture, by paradox, I think this is where we should be optimistic, because at the moment, and this is where more of my work has been in recent times, on these big global issues, you can see a massive sea change in public attitudes taking place. And yes, certainly people are still into the consumerist culture, but if you look at what's happened in this country, in the UK in particular, in the last couple of years on the climate change issue, I think there's been a complete transformation in public understanding both of the science and also the implications of that. And I think, to that extent, paradoxically, these big challenges actually are a bigger source of optimism than some of the smaller things we sometimes lose.
The book emphasises the need to save the planet for our own well-being, for example, as an asset to tourism, to help people out of poverty, or the role of biodiversity in medicine. How important is it to get people to understand this perspective?
I think it's becoming more and more the case that people are remote from nature, and yet the entire economy of the planet, every consumer good, every item of food we enjoy, every service that we use ultimately depends on natural resources or ecosystem services to be provided. And yet the way we measure the economy and the way we look at quality of life treats the planet as though it's non-existent in an economic sense, even though we depend on it for absolutely everything. And one of the philosophical shifts that has to occur to sort out some of these big issues is for us to be able to accommodate the value of the planet in the way in which we measure economic performance. So our planet is without doubt the most valuable asset that we have. Without it, we're absolutely ruined in a very real economic as well as a practical sense. And so bringing the planet into the economic system as a fundamental good is a big step that we have to take.
The end of your book talks about a paradise in the future that we could create. Sort of quite a romantic notion. How realistic do you think that is?
Humankind can do almost anything it wants to. We have incredible creativity, great resources of intellect and cooperation, societies and civilizations that have thrived for centuries. Building on all of that to create a different kind of future, I think, is now the opportunity and the choice that humankind has. So the choice is still there, but we don't have it for much longer.
Tony Juniper, thanks very much for talking to Green TV.